Good evening, and welcome to Friday Music Random Vinyl number 12. Greeted tonight once again by my wonderful wife, and we're going to pick some really cool titles tonight. Karen, go to it. What's this? Oh man! All right, so she starts with a classic, Bob Seger. Oh, I gotta take the vinyl off. Night Moves. He had a string of really great albums on Capitol from the '60s, well into the '70s, and hit pay dirt with an album called Live Bullet. It became just a huge album of Capitol. It was a double pocket album, a 2 LP set, which was kind of the thing to do back then because of Peter Frampton. What Comes Alive. Seen a lot of artists were putting out double live albums and they were selling, but this album was just filled with great stuff. He would come back with a blockbuster called Night Moves, which had so many hit records on it. By the way, one of the nicest guys in the world you ever want to meet. I worked is probably, I think one of his biggest number one records was Shakedown. It was on the Beverly Hills Cop soundtrack, and it was a huge record, but it wasn't on Capitol, it was on MCA. So it was kind of interesting that we got that record and brought it all the way to number one, and it was a huge album on top of that, and a great movie. But Seger, one of the most prolific writers of all time. I've seen him a number of times. There's incredible shows, just filled with hit songs. But an everyday kind of guy, like definitely one of the Saw the Earth performers that we've ever had on this planet. These songs on this album are just incredible. Night Moves, obviously, I don't think there'll ever be a song like Night Moves. Rock and Roll Never Forgets, Ship of Fools, which I love, which was the B-side of Night Moves. Mary Lou, which was an old 50s song, and Steve Miller had done it a couple years previous on the Joker album, so it was a different version. My favorite song on the album next to Night Moves is this follow-up hit was Main Street. Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band, Night Moves from 1976, Capitol Records. Next, Johnny Ramostella. Johnny Rivers, the great Johnny Rivers. This is an album from '67, which featured pretty much an unknown songwriter at the time named Jimmy Webb. Most of the albums are Jimmy Webb songs, except the Tracks of My Tears by Smokey Robinson and Baby I Need Your Lovin', Holland Dozier Holland from the Four Tops, which were two big singles for him off this album. A concept album in many ways. Look at this great photos of the day. Imperial Records used to have really great graphics department. Here's the Fifth Dimension, by the way, who Johnny produced and brought out his own label, Soul City Records. And obviously Jimmy Webb had a lot to do with them too, with Up and Away and things like that. But great album. Tracks of My Tears, Sweet Smiling Children, Do What You Gotta Do. For Emily Wherever I May Find Her by Simon and Garfunkel. It's a classic. Jimmy Webb signed it for me one time. Ramostella. That's Jimmy Webb's autograph. Johnny's a cool dude. Seen him a number of times. I was a few years ago in Hollywood at the Sabin Theater. He did the tribute to the Whiskey A Go days, and it was just filled with just a lot of great people in the audience. We were hanging out with Mike Love. I was with Tom Jones, obviously Jimmy Webb and Johnny. It was just a great time. And this is a really soulful album. Great singer, great songwriter, great publisher. This guy's done it all, and he's a great guitar player too. Johnny Rivers, Rewind from 1967. Next. I don't know what she's doing here. We'll see what we get. Oh, all right. This is cool. I put this out on CD a couple years ago on Friday Music. Gino Vanelli. This was his only album on Arista, Nightwalker. You autograph it there. Back in the day, I worked a couple of his albums in radio promotion back in the '80s. One being Black Cars, and we became really cool friends over the years. He puts on a hell of a show. I've seen him about half a dozen times, and even of most recent, full orchestra, great players. Nothing's changed with this guy musically. His voice is incredibly youthful. The show is just jam-packed with hits. If he's playing here in September and October, I believe, back in the States, so you got to go see him. I'm going to go see him again, but hell of a show. It's just everything, from all eras of his career, and his new material is just as cool. But this is a wonderful album. A huge song on here called "Living Inside Myself," and the title track "Nightwalker." Just a great album all the way around. Great graphics. It was a pretty big album in its day, and it belongs in your record collection. Again, Gino Vanelli, Nightwalker from 1981. Next. I can't look. I can't look. What is it? Oh, well. All right. I was just watching these guys on TV tonight. Jay and the Americans. The late, great Dennis Platt, who also known as Jay Black. That's his autograph up there. This was a concept album, one of the first in its time, an oldies but goodies tribute album from 1968, which netted them one of the biggest records of the 60s and one of the biggest records of their career with This Magic Moment, which was a huge hit for the Drifters about 4 or 5 years before this. This is a really cool album. They went back and got into the early 60s and late 50s and did covers of a lot of their favorite songs. Great inner sleeve here. Look at that early UA label. United Artists. Isn't that a cool looking label? Great sleeve too. Interesting song they do, Goodnight My Love, which closes side 2, and it features the final broadcast of Alan Freed, the famous disc jockey, basically coined rock and roll, the name. That's on this album. When You Dance is on this album, which is incredible, by the Turbans. There's some really fine songs in here. Since I Don't Have You, Hushabye is great. They make the music sound very current at the time, very late 60s sounding, somewhat psychedelic in some spots, but Sands of Time. It later came out again as Wax Museum Part 2, because after this they did an album called Wax Museum, which was another tribute, but was more later stuff. And they did tracks by like the Ronettes, like Walking in the Rain, which was a huge record. And they brought this album back as Part 2 for some people that may have missed it the first time around. And it was another successful album once again. A great album, Sands of Time, featured my old pal, the late great Jay Americans. Much like Johnny Maestro and Gene Pitney, probably one of the greatest vocalists in pop music ever, hands down. The guy could sing, and one of the nicest fellows I ever met. We would talk pretty much, a few times a year on the phone, checking up with each other. I'd find him some records he'd be looking for. I'd go find some copies, even some of his old stuff that he didn't have copies of. I'd send them to him over the years. And every time he played, I'd see him at the Valley Forge Music Fair, and I'd see him in New Jersey and places like Cherry Hill at the racetrack. An astute cat, really understood music. We lost him way too soon, man. Jay and the Americans, there you go. Thank you once again for checking in. And as always, you're the greatest.